Okay. We're live.
Well, I don't see any indication. Oh, now we're live. Right. Hello, folks. So, part 3. In the first part, tried to be the parameters of Ni in terms of how it relates to the other irrational functions, Si, Se, and Ne. We also looked at the socially intelligent roles that draw on Ni, such as mentoring, which draws on Ni and Fe, and some Fi, and also coordinating of resources towards long-term strategic objectives, which draws on Ni with Te. And then in the second event, we looked at my subfunctions and sort of discussed the definitions, and I sort of altered one of the definitions based on input from you two. And then we looked a little bit at Jung's mechanism. And recently, somebody left a YouTube comment. I think it was Jared Vaughan, and he made a very interesting comment where he gave examples of extroverted intuition in philosophy, and he mentioned Plato's forms, and then he says Jung's archetypes. And I thought, yes, that's right. The archetypes would be an example of extroverted intuition, because it is that that's a pattern that's empirically there. He can say, look at these images, look at these archetypal that repeat in these cultural products, and repeat in all of these case studies. So it's like it's going off something empirical and then bringing it together and saying there is something behind this sort of empirical data. So I thought, yeah, he's right about that. And then with Jung's mechanism, he's sort of starting with that, and then it gets more and more subjective and more sort of speculative. So it's like a lot of people can agree about the archetype stuff, because it's like, we'll just look at Joseph Campbell, A Hero with a Thousand Faces, and that inspired George Lucas. But getting back to this part, we're going to be looking at this and some other. Basically, this is the Dario Nardi stuff event.
Ben, should I?
Yep. Yes, please.
Okay.
So this is from his book, 8 Keys to Self-Leadership, from 2005. He has a follow-up book. I asked his permission to show this, and he's shown it many times before. So just to, if you put me back on, Hailey, then I got to do the plugs for Dario.
Okay, hold on.
So we've got the 8 Keys to Self-Leadership, and that has the inventories in it. So, for example, let's get Ni just to prove it's in there, where it was scanned from. So it was scanned from that. And then this is the follow-up book about 15 years later, The Magic Diamond. More value for money. It's twice as many pages. He has some updates on some neuroscience updates. Is this for Ni? Given that we're doing Ni, let's show what it has for Ni. 177. So he has this idea of, interestingly enough, that all of these sort of like functions of the same rationality, irrationality can be integrated. So what I mean by that is, if someone's an SI DOM, they can integrate the other irrational functions, SE, Ni, and Ne. And if someone's a rational type or like a rational type, say they're a TI DOM like me, then they can integrate Fi, Fe, and Te. And it's like, and I put that in my model that Dario says that you can integrate it. And I can see that in, say, TI DOMs integrating Fi. So, but the point of this book is just to say, for the people that are interested in the neuroscience and are thinking, well, Dario's book, Neuroscience of Personality, it's a little bit old now, 2011. So it's like, he's got there a page on the neuroscience of NI, and he quotes liberally from Jung, who is not yet out of copyright, but I don't think Dario will get in trouble for that. But it's not actually 70 years since he died, because he died in 61. Now, you can quote liberally from Vanderhoek because he died in 1950, so he is out of copyright. So that's enough on Dario's books. But yes, you've got Neuroscience of Personality as well. It's still a good book. So if you put me back on, Hailey, I can sort of give the audience sort of a rundown of what we're going to go through. So we're going to go through this, and then we're going to go through that, discuss that, and then we're going to discuss that, because I'm not so sure about this meta perspective thing, because I think there's a little bit too much thinking coming in. Then sort of discuss these Dario things on NI, and then a little bit on the results, and the fact that mine was down as unused because I thought the statements were way too mystical. And maybe Hailey's were lower than she actually is, because I remember going through this test where you did a video. I did a video with Hailey, folks, in August of 2016, going through this very test. And Hailey was critiquing the questions as we were going through, and you really saw her personality type as we did it. And in her case, I think she chose a lot of SI answers for like TE and scientific reasons, because I remember at that stage you were very much studying hypertrophy.
Yeah.
And she was very much had a science head on.
I'd like to go back. I don't even remember which specific test you're referring to. I would actually like to revisit that.
Oh. Well,
I mean, we can do that later after the fact. So.
Yeah, and then just a little bit. I think mainly it will be discussing that, because we only have a hour and a half. I almost said hour. Yeah. So if we can sort of because I know we've discussed this before, like a few years ago with like various people, but I think now we can sort of really sort of have examples of it, but also be in a position to critique the statements as well. So because again, with these series of videos, I'd like to go into as much depth as we can that's useful, and be honest about what we know and what we don't know, and sort of like what we think is what we're pretty sure about, and then where it gets more speculative. So any initial thoughts, Jonathan?
I relate to the top one. Yes.
Well, one moment. We need a deeper dive than that. Could you give me some examples of these aha realizations that you've had?
I cannot, because my memory is not great. I just remember having them often. Well, yesterday I was thinking of... Well, yesterday I was waiting for a message from someone. And I was waiting for a long time. I completely forgot about it, and then I remembered it again. And then just a couple of minutes later, the person contacted me, even though I hadn't been thinking of them for ages. So there's that.
Jonathan, this has happened to me so many times in my life. I have no explanation for it. It's so creepy.
Are you able to remember them, or can you just they've happened, but you can't?
Yeah. No, they've happened. I can't remember a specific example, but actually, yes, one I can. Her name was Savannah. I'm not going to give last names for privacy reasons, but I met her in the 5th grade. She moved to our town, and we ended up becoming friends. And then 7th grade, very young, like 12, she moved again, so we lost touch. And I was thinking about her, I think a few years ago, like, man, I wonder how she's doing. And it wasn't but a few days after that, she sent me a message. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is just crazy how many times that has happened to me. It's like you just calling it into existence. It's just so creepy.
It's
It
even
does,
worse.
I wish
even
it would
worse.
happen to me.
Yeah, it's worse because we can't even remember half of them, or even 90% of them. Probably it makes it even harder to, verify, to convince people that it's real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jung had a name for this. What did I've forgotten the name of the. I think it begins with S, where it's you can't find a causal link, but it's more than chance.
Mm.
And Marie Louise von Franz was very much into this phenomenon. I can't remember what it's called. It begins with S.
Well, I'm going to continue us on here with part one.
I'll find the name of it. I know it's in this book. Oh, I know what the name is. It's like towards the end. So.
Well, it's interesting to me that it must happen to people so often that someone actually decided I need to put a name to that.
Yeah, there's a name. There is a. I know. Oh, I'm actually surprised Jonathan doesn't know the name of this phenomenon. I'm surprised by his lack of knowledge of Jungian stuff. I thought you had a 5 in your trifix there, Jonathan. I thought you'd know this. But you did say you have a bad memory. Synchronicity, that's it.
Yeah, I knew the synchronicity. That's not. I think synchronicity is more. Because I mentioned that to the person as well. That's more like when like two people are. There's like two people with the same intuition. That may be a better example of synchronicity.
Yeah, that's not what I would think to name it.
Yeah.
Well,
unless we're misunderstanding Jung's definition.
Well, it's where yeah, here we go. In 1930, he first used the term synchronicity to describe an acausal connection between psychic states and objective events. And I remember Marie Louise von Franz saying that there's a connection there, that it's acausal, but that it's more than chance that you get the results. Where we go here? Some people have made some connections with quantum mechanics, but this is not the synchronicity event. It's a complex phenomenon about, because you have to do like proper studies on it. So actual aha realizations, Jonathan, about solving sort of problems, or is that me getting like too much NI with TE solving problems? Would your aha realizations be different?
I've had realizations with solving problems, but a lot of the time they're honestly really pointless. That's kind of the worst. That's kind of the worst part. A lot of the intuition is like just minor coincidences about things rather than anything else. So it's not that useful.
Yeah.
Like, I think, Jonathan, you're talking about just simple day-to-day things like, oh, this was what caused this. Like, it's really meaningless.
Yeah, even things like, me thinking of a person who's about to email me, people do, or you doing the same with your friend. That's fun, but, doesn't really matter. How can you use that? What good is that for?
Okay, so I think that we need to expand about what is going on here with these aha realizations by getting into Vanderhoek, because we've got a slightly different understanding of what.
Well, I can certainly attest to it. I mean, yes, I have random, everyday, meaningless stuff like Jonathan. I mean, simple like, this must have been what caused this, because I'm putting 2 and 2 together in my mind, thinking about, But in terms of what I'm working on, like my goals and stuff, Yeah, I do. But it's not a sudden aha. I mean, I am putting mental time in to think about it. And then I'm like, oh, dang, like I could use this. Like a good example is the lives I'm doing now. I've been trying to understand how Instagram alerts individuals. And for example, you start a live, you have 200 viewers, but then 50 leave. But Instagram then alerts 50 new people. So I'm like, how are we going to get the best result, like the most people viewing? Like and so okay, I know it's a long story, but so I'm like, why wouldn't I make a video that ends up being boring, but it wows you at first, right? I want someone to come in, be wowed, and then get bored and leave, so that someone else comes in and is wowed and then gets bored and leaves, so that we have a higher turnover, so that more people see it. And I'm just
so it's limited to 50. Why would it be
no,
limited to 50?
that was an example, just an example.
All right.
So, but how lives work, you'll have a certain amount of average viewers at any given time. 20 people will leave, but then 30 people are alerted. So 30 people will come in, and then 15 people might leave, and then 20 more people come in. Like it's like a continual influx, leaving, coming in, leaving, coming in, leaving, coming in. But so I got to thinking, well, how can we get the best turnover rate? Like I want people to come in.
But what it really is, what I would say is, it's about retaining. If you retain, then it will build.
Yeah, we don't know how
as long as there's no limit on how many people can view, as long as you retain, you will then use that old phrase, build an audience.
This is speculation. We don't know this. We start lives, and some of them take off from the get-go, and most of them don't. And so I'm trying to identify why. Why do some take off and some do not? But that's my question, right? I've been trying to delve deep into how the algorithm works, how it's alerting people, how we can make this more worth our time. And I have typed every combination into Google, into search engines that I can find to try to get information based on specifically lives on Instagram. How does the algorithm work? How does it alert people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? But basically, getting back to the aha moment, I was like, well, if I make a video that's super engaging and it's so amazing, and it's like continually like the video is bringing new content so that people are remaining there, then I will have the same 200 viewers over the course of 10 minutes. I don't want that. I want a continual influx of new people. So getting back to...
Wait a minute. Why does holding those 200 viewers prevent new viewers from coming in?
Because from what I have seen, based on 2 months of lives, Instagram automatically caps your video.
That's
at
stupid.
A certain amount of... Yeah, well, welcome to Instagram. Welcome to suppression. Where would we be without it? But that's just the way it is. You are capped at a certain amount. Like right now...
Instagram's being cheap with their bandwidth.
I don't know. It could be a variety of factors, but that's the thing. I don't know why it caps us, but it caps us. And so I'm like, well, I understand that, because when you get off of the live, the host of the live is able to see the overall viewers, the total viewers, which often runs into the thousands, the tens of thousands.
I would like to investigate, is that cap standard?
I would imagine.
Is it just your sort? I mean, are there other kinds of streams? Like, say it's the Democrat stream. Oh, no cap.
I think it depends on how many followers the page has. Because, for example, I see pages with 10 million followers going live, and they seem to be capped at about 700 live viewers. When it's 2 to 5 million and under, we're capped at about 500 viewers. And anything under 1 million, you're capped at about 200 viewers. Continual viewers, average viewers over the course of the hour. So yes, the bigger the page, the bigger the cap.
My suggestion would be to absolutely go for audience retention, because those people would want to subscribe afterwards, and that will build your audience, and then your cap will rise.
Yes, but it's a very slow process.
Well, I mean, yes,
you only get allotted a few more hundred viewers from 1 million to 5 million, and it's going to take a while to build to that. So, but getting back to the point, this is my mindset, and then when I come
that's an I with TE.
Right, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So,
but But in the reason I want to go through this is more about the aha moments.
Yeah, right.
Whereas specifically
Well,
what Jonathan was
that's
mentioning didn't
Well, I would.
jive with my experience of aha moments.
Well, I've done both. I've done like I've had the sudden. I probably my fault. I could play two different things, two different
Right. Okay. So let's go.
examples. Really.
Right. Well, let's go through this as well because I've not actually gone through this with anybody, and to like critique this. So I'll read this through. So this is about intuition in general, but some are going to be. I can say which bits are more NE and which bits more NI. This kind of conscious experience is something special. In addition to the instinctive sphere of experience, it possesses the following distinguishing characteristics. Because he'll talk about introspective data and external data. Van der Hoop was really into consciousness. Compared with the continuity which is characteristic of happenings in the instinctive sphere, that's the sensory instinctive sphere, which is the sensory sphere plus the emotional reaction to it, which is actually summed up, which is why Jung's original word sensation is better than sensing, because sensation connotes an emotional response. Wow, what a sensation. Whereas sensing seems more passive. Compared with the continuity of the form assumed by intuitive experience has about it something momentary, more or less sudden and unique. Often it comes like a flash of lightning. So that's like the aha moments. In intuitive experience, there is spontaneous insight into the relation of a certain group of facts, as a result of which they assume an added significance. This is something quite different from the practical instinctive knowledge which results from emphasis in sensation. So I'm wondering, is that more NE? But NI DOMs are also going to do that because they're also going to be having strong. I'll have what socionics calls ignoring NE in the background and what I call backseat driver NE. And NE DOMs will have backseat driver NI. But that, and again, I think Van der Hoop was right in, like, he called himself an introverted thinking type with subsidiary intuition. Basically, Van der Hoop INTP, and Wojtek agrees. And so, what you got to watch with these INTPs is their bias comes through in their descriptions, especially when they describe TI. It sounds exactly like how TI is used in INTP, and not so much how it's used in STPs. So the way they'll go, oh, it's all about theories and all this kind of stuff. Well, it's for you, mate, but not for all TPs. So when he writes about intuition, this might be biased towards like INTP intuition. Right. The spontaneous insight into the relation of a certain group of facts. Now, I have that. Do you have that?
Are you asking me? I feel
Yeah, I'll ask you. I'll ask you, Hailey, because it will allow Jonathan to sort of get back into the swing of things.
So yeah, again, it's not just random. I have to be thinking about it. I mean, I'm not just sitting there with nothing on my mind. In fact, I'm never just having nothing on my mind. My mind is continually going. But like, if I'm not thinking about a certain thing, I don't just randomly have something pop into my head out of nowhere. I have to like already be thinking about it. But yes, like what we just discussed. I mean, is it objectively the answer? I don't know, but it feels like at this point, this is the best I can do. So this aha moment of here's how I'm going to better my strategy to get more bang out of my buck for the time I'm putting in, being I want a wow video that gets very repetitive very quickly to wow you and then get you out. That sounds terrible, but that's just, hey, maybe I'll come up with a better strategy down the road when I learn more information. But at that point, it's like, yeah, I mean, when I'm sitting and just ruminating over these things and I'm like, oh, dang, like that's what I should try. So I feel like this happens with me a lot.
An example I can give of a connection between facts, especially related to typology, is I was looking at the social benefit rings in socionics, and especially there's one for right spinning extroverts, and it was a group of 4 types. It was ESTJ, ENFJ, ESFP, and ENTP. And then I looked at those 4, and I knew what the Kersey predisposed roles were. And I looked at them, I thought, hang on a minute, those roles are complementary, especially if we change the role of ENTP from inventor to debater. Because I think most people would agree that, like, not all ENTPs are inventors, but the average ENTP is going to be an above average debater, right? That is like, if you were to pick an activity that ENTP is better at than most other types, it's debater. Is that fair enough to say? They're good debaters. And so I would say they're just like INFJs are naturally good counselors. Even if it's like informal, I think ENTPs are naturally good debaters. Because they have the minds where they can look at an issue from lots of different angles in a dispassionate way. And so then when you look at those 4 roles of, say, teacher for ENFJ, supervisor for ESTJ, debater for ENTP, and performer for ESFP, I thought, hang on a minute, those roles are complementary in, say, an educational setup. Or it might be an ESTJ. You donut, you don't do it like that. Switch to switch to teacher mode, you do it like this. And so those roles seem complementary. So there was a connection there between, and the real connection is their social benefit rings about those 4 types work well together in a sort of a work environment. And the Kersey names for the predisposed roles are, again, social roles. So there was a connection there. And so that would be an example of me seeing a connection between that. And then maybe with, like, when I saw the connection with, although it's more obvious with the NLP ideas, with the NI and SE, that's more obvious. And then there's an example of an aha moment is when I'm writing something and I'm like, I'm not quite, it's like, doesn't quite feel right. And then maybe the next day, and it's like, it doesn't, I've got to work on this, it's not quite right. And then the solution will come. And a lot of times, if I know the character's point of view, the character writes itself. And that is why I put so much effort into getting the character's point of view. A ridiculous amount of effort, because certain characters are easier than others. Like an ESTJ Nigerian point of view, like, that writes itself for me. But when it's like the point of view of a 9 ENFP, that's quite tricky. Oh, right. So this is a digression, but I think it's interesting. And that is, I recently looked at this paper by Daniel Katz, and I saw it on the Wikipedia one for attitude. And what's interesting about this is, Hailey, can you do a maximize on my my screen, and then I can sort of like go through this bit.
Oh shit! Sorry, I accidentally removed you, Ben.
Yeah, if you put me, like, if you go to like the vertical thirds.
Sorry, Jonathan.
Right, if you get.
I'm still figuring out how to use this.
Right. No, if you, what you did for Jonathan just then, can you do for me? Like,
yes.
like that. But that's
there
it.
We go.
Brilliant,
Sorry.
perfect. So, and it'll even work if I put the lights on. So I'm just mentioning this because this is interesting. And I think it has typological factors and also Enneagram factors. So, because I was trying to find a way to understand attitudes differently from opinions, and because it is complicated, but looking at the function approach of attitudes, interesting. So it's like those like attitudes which serve self-interest. So for example, if someone's big and tough, and if they have the attitude of might makes right, that's a self-serving attitude. And then there's like, and with knowledge, it's actually going towards clarity and consistency. But like cats may have been like INTP, and it's like also like INFPs as well. I think they're looking for attitudes which are consistent with their other attitudes and their values. And then interestingly, attitudes which are ego defensive. And then I think that these ones, I think that goes from less conscious to more conscious, because I think someone can project without being conscious. And then all the ones that I've worked on before, those attitudes which are value expressive. So Jonathan, do you think that this could have some utility in terms of re-enneagram for sort of like dividing up? Like you could look at like ego defenses of various enneagram ones.
I suppose that's one way to do it.
Yeah, it's just a nice little neat. And I suppose the only aha moment with that was oh, that's a nice way of organizing it. I like that. But that's more going towards TI. Anyhow, getting back to Vanderhoop, these features of intuition. So I'm gonna put some words into your mouth, Jonathan, and then you can let me know if you want to. And it's up to you whether to want to spit them out or digest them. So what my theory would be is, I always talk about temperament, and in the case of Hailey, her NI, with that example she gave, her NI, her aha moments are working in the context of objects and processes and strategic building. And what I'm thinking is, in asking you that kind of question, Jonathan, such as which aha we're like, but I'm thinking with you, Jonathan, that you may have had these aha insights when, say, studying Enneagram, and there may have been like psychological aha moments.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that, yes.
Right, so you're swallowing that, good, rather than spitting it out, right?
And to an extent to other topologies and other things like that as well.
Also, and maybe last week you had a connection where Hailey said something, and you thought, that could be a thing in psyche yoga or attitudinal psyche. You paused, you muted.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. And we can go into that in future, because it's there's some utility to psyche yoga. I'm just not so sure that it's always in the hierarchy that they think it is. I think sometimes that hierarchy is true. It's a little bit like I object to the hierarchy. I definitely object to the hierarchy in the Graves model and spiral dynamics. That's like, get out of here, because it has like it looks like a hierarchy of types. I mean, Enneagram doesn't have a hierarchy of like Enneagram fixations. It's not like trying to get everyone to be a certain Enneagram. But spiral dynamics, it's like, well, you start off down here and then you get to this wonderful NF at the top that votes Democrat. That's what it looks like, a spiral dynamics and Graves model, because the actual creators of that model were liberal. Anyhow, being political today, oh dear. What was I saying before I got onto the Graves model? Yes. I was just going to say that the instinctual stacking in the Enneagram, I think in certain people, it's true that the first instinct is what someone really wants, and the second one is what someone is good at. But I don't think that's always the case. I think that's always the case. I think in some people, the first one's going to be the one that they're best at, because that's the one they pay attention to.
Well,
with a dominant function.
I didn't say it's what you're best. I didn't say you're saying it's what you're best at, what you're least worst at sometimes.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Why does it have to be that way in that particular configuration?
Because that would be, well, that's how it works. I mean, if you're
Hey, see, that's the thing. This is the problem I get with INFJs. It's like they take in the system,
point is,
they
if that's
understand the system, but it's like,
why
can't we change the system? The INTP wants to change the system.
I can kind of see what you're talking about, but why would that not be your second instinct then? Or you can get. It's not really. That's not really how it was. That's just one way of explaining it. The real way of explaining it is that the first instinct is your neurotic focus of attention, is the thing you're most worried about, whereas the second is kind of your backup instinct, shall we say, and the third one's what you pay less attention to.
Yeah, but my point is that it's not necessarily the case that the instinct that is paid most attention to is because
partly that's my way of explaining it. It's not necessarily what I think other teachers would agree, but that's just one way of explaining it.
I'm saying as a paradigm that can work in some people. This is one of the issues I have with socionics and Enneagram, is that at times they can get overly precise, and that there are other paradigms sort of available.
I could have a debate about this, but I think it'd be getting a bit off topic.
Yeah, but again, so that would be examples of like aha moments. So psychological insights for Jonathan, because that's his focus of attention. Hailey's focus of attention is strategic. She's probably actually had insights when she did her hypertrophy research. And about about what connects together, and because I remember she kept talking about those 3 factors of
quite a lot.
muscle damage,
Mechanical
stress,
tension, metabolic stress, muscular damage. Yeah,
and you're saying that you can't. You did a video once where you said you can't look at them in isolation.
Yeah, no, there's so much. The overlap is just ridiculous.
Yeah, and also like because you really got into the biochemistry of it, it's like there's so much of a complex system going on with just in how one cell operates.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
In fact, I remember Hailey saying that she once wanted to write a big ass diagram.
I started it, but I abandoned it because of how intricate it. There's no way I could have fit everything on that poster board, even if I had a poster board the size of the wall. I mean, man, I started it, and go ahead.
Maybe you need one of these like. I wish I was good at this stuff, like technologically, where you could like zoom in and do it, and then zoom. Something like rescaling ability with like the complexity. These things will be easier in future.
Yeah, but I almost don't like that. It doesn't, like, I want everything to be as visible as everything else, because in my mind, all the information matters.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know.
And I'm big on color coding.
I know you are.
I don't care about true colors. They have their own colors. I'm not changing my Kersey colors. Guardians are blue. Idealists are green. NTs are purple. And artisans are red, and I'm not changing the color code, red or orange. So a heart, but also, Jonathan, you also say that you you play chess and you play some computer games that tax your mind in terms of like tactics and solutions.
Strategy.
So would you have aha moments when you're doing those sort of intellectual activities?
Yeah, sometimes. No,
Right.
I was actually teaching someone chess a few weeks ago, and I had a couple of them when I was playing chess with them. There's a couple of times they almost beat me, but oh yeah.
I actually think that I once did a sort of a Mensa question, and the actual solution came to me, and rather than I was sort of working it through methodically. I sort of wasn't quite getting anywhere. And then there's like a key insight aha moment. And what it was, I'll try and get you the question. So, Hailey, can you maximize my square and then the audience can see this? And then the audience can think about it themselves.
Yeah, one moment.
So, thank you. Oh, if you put yourselves.
Hold
Nope.
on. I'm sorry. Nope.
That's all right.
I'm clicking on you. There we go. No, I didn't change. Hold on, Ben.
Okay.
So with me emphasized, but you two down the side.
Oh, shit.
There should be one where it's like a big. Is there a way to like? Okay,
there's you.
That's
Okay.
good enough. So that one there, decorative cards.
There are
So
4 cards on the table. Each one is board yellow ones. I've got a hard time envisioning things.
Yeah, so I was doing that sort of methodically, and then I was sort of getting somewhere, but then I sort of like got a little bit. But then I had a aha insight, and like I got it right. But what I'm thinking is, and then I actually showed this to an INFJ woman, and she got the answer right quickly. And I'm thinking that there can be some instances, if you like go back off me, because I look a bit orange.
Sorry, I forget.
Right, and so it was a bit so I think, and because I got there, I had that insight sort of after. First I did a lot of thinking, and then later on I had the insight. And there was this INFJ who's like this INFJ woman who's been on YouTube. I won't mention her name, but she got the answer quickly. But she didn't. And then I showed her that one with the probability balls, but she didn't get that one right. But she had insight into this one quickly. Aha insight. So that might be an example where sometimes NI can do can solve things where it's not sort of a conscious reasoning thing. And I don't want to say that TI is conscious reasoning. I just think that TP types tend to build up their conscious reasoning because TI relies on that. Just like an SE DOM and hand-to-eye coordination are two different things, but an SE DOM is likely to draw on hand-to-eye coordination because a lot of the activities that SE DOMs are attracted to require that. So, for example, say you've got an INFP or an INTP that's got a lot of hand-to-eye coordination, it might be wasted on them because they're not interested in doing the activities as much that would draw on it, or they may not be paying attention. So if we go back to those squares, I know I'm going all over, but it's like to try and get an idea on to drill down on these aha moments. And so we've already got to the sort of place. So can you do sort of stuff like that, Jonathan, where you suddenly the solution will just pop into your mind?
Yes, not often enough for my liking, but
yeah, I mean that happens. Like, yeah, with other ones, I'm more sort of methodical, like just going through all the steps, and
yeah. See,
and the thing is,
for me, methodical requires a bit more effort. I'm always looking for the aha moment, and it doesn't always come. I'm waiting for it to click in my mind.
Yeah,
and have to consciously think. So
it's like what you said about writing, where you said, "Oh no, I just do intuition. I don't need to do the characterization steps."
kind of, yeah. It's always like it's also compared to chess. Like a lot of chess, you play enough games, you don't really need to memorize or calculate too much because you know all the especially if you know the opening moves and so on. You'll have seen the same patterns 1,000 times for your opening moves. So
What I would say,
use
what
it.
I would say for that approach is you really like if someone's an NI dom like that, like Hailey and Jonathan. I think that if they're going to take that approach of relying on it, then you really got to feed the beast and have a 5 fix in there
Well,
to have some material for the NI to draw on.
no, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, because if you've not got
That's
if you've got not the knowledge for it to work on, to find the connections between, to have the insights into, then it's not going to work. I mean, like Hailey, you had to do a lot of research in order to get your insights into what you were studying.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is a factor, because otherwise it seems a little bit lazy of, oh, I'll just rely on my intuition and it for happen. But like, you've got to have fed it beforehand. You've got to have like taken it all in Jonathan's case, because again, it's like, Jonathan, if you didn't have that 5 fix, I don't think that you would have those kind of intuitions that you would have, because you've fed it. You've fed your unconscious.
Well, I don't know about that, because I'm saying chess as an example there, but chess is something that I think that's how most really experienced players play chess, because again, there's just certain moves that are going to make more sense than others, so you're not going to have to think about them. But there's no point in like opening with a rook pawn half the time.
Okay.
For example.
Okay, you're good at chess. You're better than me. Okay, thumbs up. But what I'm sort of saying is that you're going to have more psychological insights, aha moments of a psychological nature, because you know about typology than if you didn't know about typology.
Yes.
So in that sense, you've fed the beast.
Yes. Just not sure how we'd attribute that to 5 or just
but
just other things.
If we ignore the number, it's just the actual have studied it in the past and taken it all in. It's like these things where they talk about, what is it, about the 10,000 hours to get for an expert. It's like, because all of that has been done, all of that material that the aha moment springs out of. Yeah. And it's like, it's what people realize about, but you don't realize, like, yes, but I've been doing this for 20 years, or I've been working on this for 20 years. This is the end point of all of that work that then springs forth into the idea that's made a connection and re-understood all that past.
Yeah, I have seen people who like brag about or bring that up at times, and they're dead wrong, because they've just been wrong for 20 years sometimes. But I remember being in university or whatever, and having a real sense of mastered certain areas of history. Or getting to the point where I realized, I see how far I've come and see how far I need to go now. Because with history, what you do is you read a book on a certain subject, and then you read another book on that same subject, and another book on that same subject, and so on, and you're getting different perspectives, and you're seeing, even though like a bunch of authors are basically talking about the same thing, they're talking about it in slightly different ways, and they'll sometimes bring up details that other authors didn't, say things that contradict some other authors. And when you finally get it all together like a big jigsaw piece, that's when it comes, and that could take years to get to.
Yeah.
But that's the point when I realized I had a good solid grasp on the subject.
There's also, in the case of typology, it was like when I knew enough about Kersey, and then enough about, because we like started this in like 2013, and enough about socionics, and if you know, then you can see the connections and the distinctions. There's got to be, so there's a phrase out there, intuition is a daughter of knowledge. So again, it's all that groundwork in order to get to the point where you have the aha moments. And one of the reasons I speculated about any DOMs, the reason why any DOMs can make a lot of connections is because their preference to study lots of different things in order to make connections between those different subjects. Whereas I think Hailey likes the phrase a mile wide and an inch deep is how the NPs can be. Whereas Hailey's insights would be more within the field of hypertrophy and going deep into that. Whereas I think the NPs would be more interdisciplinary, the interdisciplinary insight. So, for example, I was reading about contradictory results in ADHD research, and I thought, well, obviously this is referring to the SE DOMs, and that's referring to the NE DOMs. That's why it's different. Because, so for example, the SE DOMs can focus really well once their stimulation threshold has been reached. Then they concentrate better than anybody else. So, like I said, in a sporting event, where that's why you get those players who are big match players. The more stress, the bigger the game, the better they play, because they're more into it. When the game is less important, they're not as much in the zone. The big match players. Right then. So, Jonathan, if you want to read a bit through and comment whilst I have a break and have a rice pudding.
Which part?
If you want to, unless you want to comment on B again.
So C.
Yeah.
Intuitive knowledge appears to be new, and
I'm not so sure about the second half.
yeah, because it kind of contradicts everything you were just saying about the thousands of hours and stuff. It does. There is intuitive knowledge that feels new, and there's intuitive knowledge that feels like, oh, it makes sense now.
Well, in events, I'll frequently come up with something and I'll say, oh, this is a new bit. This is a new, and I've come up with, but I don't know whether that's intuition or, but, oh, this is a new thought. Because frequently when I do the videos on my own or with other people, there's like a way of putting it that I've not sort of put before.
Yeah. What's the next part? This insight is a peculiar convincing quality. It brings with it the conviction relation in contrast to the empirical adaptation of instinctive experience, where conviction covers no more than can be done. Yeah, I can kind of feel that where in the moment it feels really certain and really obvious. Like, oh, I understand now. And then later you're like, wait, do I? Whatever. And that goes back to like what I was saying at the very beginning about I can't give examples of intuition half the time or most of the time. I just know that I've had them, and that's hard.
Can you write them down? Can I give you homework? Can you write them down when you have them, please?
They're completely random, and sometimes it can be months apart. So there's no.
Could you not keep an NI diary for me, please, to like prove that NI is a thing?
I can't make any promises. Maybe if I remember.
I mean, like, there are people that keep like a dream diary, but like moments, a diary of realizations.
Yeah. A dream diary is supposed to be good for like, what's that term where you know you're dreaming?
Oh, lucid dreaming.
Lucid dreaming, yes. Yeah. I don't know if I want to know when I'm dreaming.
But in terms of, wouldn't you think it would be interesting if you had a record of your sort of intuitions? This is, you might get that intuition refresh. If you kept a record of your intuitions over a year, and then at the end of the process, you then look back at your record of intuitions. In looking back at your intuitions, you would have the intuition refresh, where you would have an intuition about your past intuition, and you would be extra intuitive. You'd go next level NI Dom, Jonathan.
Was that an NI moment for you, Ben?
I don't know. It's just an idea. Really, you could just copy them, really, because it took the idea of like intuition refresh, where you get a re-intuition. But that actually, that's not quite right. It's reflection-based re-intuition. So, for example, if you had a record of your intuitions and you reflected on them, out of that reflection, you'll have another intuition. And that's what I called reflection. But that's what intuition refresh really means. reflection-based re-intuition. You have the intuition because you've done the reflection.
This is how my life just plays out. Like I have so many, it's not like I think about something and then I get an aha moment and it's like, oh, I don't need to think about that anymore. It's done. Just put it aside. No, I continually go there and go there and go there. And I think it's because, for example, the example I gave earlier about the lives, yes, it's an aha moment because it is, but it's like, is this the best way? Might I receive a better aha moment and let me contemplate further on this so that I might come to a better aha moment to make things even better, right? Because that's the whole point of using your mind, to come to aha moments to further you along in what you're doing and make your day better.
Yeah, I will bring up something there because go back to chess. There are times where I have intuitive moments where I see a move and I automatically think, this is not a great move, but I think the player will fall. I know the player will fall for it and I just happen to know that the player will just make that mistake. They'll overlook it. There's times where that's happened as well, where it's not the best move at all, but it's the winning move because the player just doesn't see it or won't see it. And even so, it's kind of a gamble with that, but like there are moments where you just intuitively know that's what you should do, even if it's not the logically best move.
I feel that I read people like this, maybe not as good as someone who is an INFJ. And a good example is in my live groups, because I know there's only going to be a certain amount of lives every day. And like, I know this information is going to be put out, but probably not a lot of people are going to watch this. But when I'm in these live groups and some girls come on and for some reason, I maybe don't want to go live with them, I'll offer up the spot because I'm like, I know these other girls haven't been here today and they probably will be later. And I'd rather be in that live than this live. And also for, I guess, FE reasons, it's kind of nice when I'm offering the spot to oh no, you go ahead and take this one. But I have reasons why. So, but yeah, I mean, many things come into play. Like, I don't know, that's probably not a good example, but I find that I do experience that too, like trying to read the person, and this might not be the best move for now, but in the overall scope of things, it will get me to the end goal faster or more efficiently.
There's a guy, if I wasn't working on Wilma's Housemates, I would like study typology a bit more, maybe. And I would read this book called Instinct and Intuition by George Binney Dibley. He was a very good writer. He has a lot of style. There's a bit there about the reflection-based re-intuition. And I think you, Hailey, like I said, you don't just stop with the intuition. You reflect on it, and then you have a further intuition.
Yeah, but this is so natural. I feel like people who are in their mind anyway, they're going to do this over and over and over and over. It's like you don't have to force yourself to, let me reflect on that revelation. It just happens. You just do it because you're just so used to doing it.
I think this is SE. I think this is artisan mode. Act in some ill-considered but immediately efficient fashion.
Yeah.
So, Jonathan, what are your thoughts on this bottom bit here about this?
Well, the action thing would make sense as far as like SE being the shadow of NI. So, intuition immediate, restricted. Intuition refresh you. Yes, I relate to that. Not how I would phrase it, obviously, but this
guy was the editor of like a Manchester Guardian newspaper. He wasn't a proper academic. He was just like a gifted amateur.
Yeah, there's an immediate. Yeah, so I relate to. I think we've talked about that as well already. Like, sometimes intuition is just there, and it doesn't make sense after reflection.
Ooh, there's a nice bit of writing here. chapter 1, card 2 front. That's a nice bit of. It's just you know, I'm a little bit like, I think stuff in the past, like when you these academics, I think they wrote better. I just think their English was better. It was sort of more, their formal English was just better. There's a little bit more. Yeah, I like this. I like this bit here. The meaning of instinct and intuition, when used as technical terms by serious writers, often overlap, but that is because the broad facts they represent do in fact frequently cover the same ground. Where's the other bit? Oh, I don't know what went wrong. I didn't rename it. Oh, darn it. I should put, is it that one? Writers, I want that one. That's the one I want. That one. Link here. One. Is it that one? That one, yeah. What do you think of this? So again, this whole book is like just discussing, well, most of it is like instinct and intuition, and fine distinctions and quoting what philosophers have written about instinct and intuition. Oh yeah, and I've got some comparisons there to Van der Hoek.
That's interesting. The ability that teaches us to see. It's not in this page, but a page or two ago, there was a quote unquote self-evident truth. I think I struggle with that a little bit. It was near the bottom, I think.
No. It was.
Yes.
Well, maybe.
You were just on it. I just saw it, but.
Oh, I was just on it. All right, so.
Yeah. No, not this one.
Okay, we'll do a process of elimination.
Yeah, sorry, it's near the bottom. No.
Okay, so the other one then. So the first one.
Might have been. Yes. Restricted to a primary perception of self-evident truth. This idea of quote unquote self-evident truth, like I struggle with this, and this is where we were talking in the previous video. When I have a revelation about something, and I might feel very strongly that it's going to be effective and efficient, but it's so automatic. I just innately feel, but is this the best way? Is this objectively the most efficient way? Like I might have an aha, that's a great method. But then I'm like, is there a better method? Is there a better method? Is there a better method? And so I just can't stop. And so it just compounds and compounds and compounds. So while I do feel like I have a lot of aha moments, especially when it, like in terms of what I'm doing, and like if I'm training someone or trying to come to find some sort of a better strategy for social media growth, I will have a lot of, ahas. Wow, I bet that's going to work pretty well. But is there something that might work better? So I just can't shut it off. It goes and goes. Is there something better? Is there something better? Keep looking, keep thinking. So it builds and builds and builds.
Yeah, I have some more cards. There's a little bit here. Because in this night, They've got the instinct in red and the intuition in violet. There's a bit, so instinct and intuition will be found to be not identical, chiefly on account of the strong physical relations of instinct. This is very consistent. Vanderhoek fanboyed this book. He said, oh, he's got to the same conclusions as me about instinct. And there's a lot of like nice little distinctions in it. And it's, so again, mental relations. So it's like you could say that, and partly me, partly it, where I can like, instinct is related to the concrete, intuition is related to the abstract. This is why intuitives have like abstract speech and sensory instinctive types have concrete speech. There's that relation there between the two, but there's a better, this one. I've now everything that's in purple I find pink slightly amusing. I just found the word perplexities amusing. To intuition. Intuition often seems to shade off into clever guessing. That may be called the human side of intuition. The other side is so indefinite that it may be called mystical or divine. There is no limit that is not attainable from the heights of inspiration at the base to the summit of the marvels of ecstatic vision. Everything there is possible. The resources of language and the capacity of memory limits what can be retained and the little that can be communicated to others. The inward confidence and security that remain are indescribable on the testimony of those such as Jonathan, who have experienced the loftiest flights of the reflection and thought. So sort of a cynical view of intuition. Yeah. I think he had a nice writing style. But anyway, getting back to Vanderhoek, and then we'll get back to, because we've got about half an hour on Dario. Some more of these features of intuition. I can't remember which slides we've already gone through. Your convincing quality. So in Jonathan, do you think your E1 is a big factor in that as well?
Then it says with
the convincing quality.
It's weird. Even before I learned anything about typology, like even when I was young, I distinguished between my sense of I know this is right, a knowledge, logical sense of being right, and the intuitive sense of being right, and the instinctive sense of being right. It's weird. It's like there's a very subtle distinction between instinct and intuition. And by instinct, I talk about like the type 1 instinct being right. They may be related in the sense that they can back up each other. But their intuition is more like it's more like seeing, it's more like a sense of things, whereas the type 1 intuition is more like a conviction. So as far as intuition being a kind of as far as conviction of intuition goes, that's just a conviction that yes, I am seeing something real. Whereas type 1 conviction is more like yes, I am right. This is correct. And
now, in those three examples, those three categories you gave, can you give examples from each category?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Damn it.
What would the difference, and this is kind of trailing off, sorry. It's going to be me here trailing us off for once. The difference between like an E1 saying this is right, I feel a conviction that this is right, and then FI, strong FI, being like this is right.
I have talked to FI types who said that, they're very black and white on the outside, but internally they're actually lots of shades of grey and seeing different points of view. With FI is actually more like a really strong like or really strong dislike, and lots of things in between. You'll get a lot of INFP authors, for example, and their characters can be really complex and morally grey and so on. But if they're on social media and they're talking about some political issue, they'll get really black and white. It's like they can see it, but it's not care when they're actually feeling about it, shall we say.
Yeah, they're in the advocate role.
Yeah.
Predisposed role of NFPs. And so, for example, I mean, that's the main... So Kersey naturally had ENFP as the social advocate, it is going predisposed towards the advocator role. And so that would be, and so INFP sort of predisposed to the role of mediator, but the next one is advocate. Interestingly enough, the role of advocate and promoter are quite close. And Vanderhoop's comments about an unhealthy ENFP sounded like an ESTP to me. But that's just like an example of complementary roles, because of ENFP and ESTP both being less spinning extroverts. So there's some interesting, but again, it's like with the social benefit rings. There's something, it's like with the archetypes, there's something empirically there in social benefit rings. I'm just not sure you should base a model around it of the psyche, but there's definitely something to social benefit rings. Now for number E, sorry, letter E, intuitive experience is more personal than is instinctive experience. It is as if by our insight we were in control of something, as if relationships and possibilities were revealed to us. And intuition is something special, having a certain value for the person concerned. As a result, intuitions may, owing to the personal form in which they take expression, exert persuasive influence on others. Any thoughts, Jonathan? E?
Yeah. Well, yes, but that's the sense of control kind of like comes after, especially if you're feeling like you have to justify it to other people or to yourself that it's real and that actually is doing things. Because obviously that's like saying, you know, your eyesight gives you a sense of control. I suppose it does, but it's not the raison d'etre. That's not what your eyesight is for. Just as a bonus. You understand? That's kind of what I'm homing on.
I think by this is maybe if we say that NI is a power, it might be a sense of control of a power. As if say if you frame NI as like a psi ability, and do you have a sense of when you're using it that you have power in that area of that ability? I think that is sort of how I interpret it.
Sometimes yes, but again, it's also something that's automatic. It's like I can kind of do it consciously, but a lot of it is also has a life of its own.
Think about NE, Ben. Do you have to think about doing it? You're there.
It just happens. Yeah. So in doing these events with you two, it's like I noticed that I think very differently from you two in the use of NI, and it's very hard for me to actually give examples of. I can give examples of having ideas and having aha moments, but that's about it. And that sense of, oh, I'm going in the right direction. But it's like as if something is leading me to think in the right direction. And it's like almost like that's like the invisible hand of NI, getting me to think in the right. So before it's become conscious, before it's in the realm of thought, that I'm going in the right direction, that there's something there, something over the hill. And that when thought just goes over that hill, thought will be able to see what intuition has intuited is over that hill. That's sort of how my experience of NI. And is that like you for all the while, that it's like there's something over that hill?
Yes, all the time. All the time. Even when I have an aha moment and I'm like, I came across something substantial and it's going to work incredibly, but I just can't be like, oh, great, I found the answer. No, it's like, I just more. What's next? How can I do this better? And a lifetime of that, it's like there doesn't have to be a hand there pulling me because I'm already going. It's just, there's always a yearn for what more? What's over that hill that I haven't yet had a revelation about? And it could be something as stupidly simple as, how am I setting up my tasks during the day? Could I be more efficient? Oh, I could do it this way. That would be a smarter use of my time. Something stupid during the day, but it's always there. It's always there. Like, no matter big goals, big projects I'm working on, it's always there. Little crap I'm doing during the day, stupid stuff, always there.
So, Jonathan, you've sort of read novels or comics involving sort of like magical powers, psi powers. Is there any point where you thought, oh, my NI's a little bit like this? Not as good as that, but a little bit like that.
Oh yes, the Jedi in Star Wars. That sort of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, that's sort of, they're using NI. So they're using the intuition. I have noticed that the INJ characters might be a bit better at using NI as a Jedi or a Sith power to see the future, whereas there's other Jedi and stuff who don't seem as good at that, which is an interesting observation. But the person, you can definitely tell that the personality of the characters influences how they're using these powers.
That's a big factor in Babylon 5. One of the reasons I suggest you watch Babylon 5 is there's so much foreshadowing in it because it's planned out so much years in advance as to what's going to happen. And there's some filler episodes in the first season, but I think you've got a seer, a prophetess, the Lady Ladera in episode 14 of season 1, Signs and Portents. Anyway, F. A sixth characteristic of intuition is the form it takes in memory. In recalling an instinctive experience, memory may proceed from emphasis to emphasis in sensation, and in this way reproduce the actual experience. This is not possible with intuition. Here, a totality with its distinctive structure must be recalled. This totality is fixed in the memory in the form of a certain image, which serves to bring the whole experience back to life. This image may be of something incidental, for example, the person who gave us the intuition or the place where it occurred. It may, however, bear some relation to the whole and reflect certain of its features. In this case, the image becomes a symbol. Word symbols have been of particular significance in the development of mental life. In this connection, I may point out that words of primitive languages, it's an old book, refer to relationships rather than things. Anything in that strike you, Jonathan?
Yes. Yes, but there are also what I call kind of spooky NI moments where there's no memory at all to it, where things just seem to come together and happen without any real logic, even if I try. I'd say most of the time if I have an intuition, I can look back and say, oh, I see how I got to that conclusion, I see how it makes sense. Every now and then there's just something that's genuinely feels psychic and out of the blue, and I don't quite know how to make sense of it.
Could you get a micro tape recorder, and every time you have one of these moments, record it and then build it up, and then we could do a video. Jonathan's NI moments over the last month.
No, the same thing. It's the same thing with me. And I mean, I've been wrong often, but sometimes it's really eerie. Yeah, it's like, for example, you read a story or someone they're telling you about something they're going to do, and it's almost creepy. This is going back to the previous point, and sorry, Ben, it's just you didn't ask me. So I didn't say anything. Yeah, but no, like I'll be hearing someone a family member, a friend, talk about something they're planning on doing and giving the story behind it, and I'll be listening, and it's like, I don't know, it's almost, I don't know the word for it, eerie, because I feel like I'm looking at them, but I'm watching what they're saying play out, and I'm like looking at them, but in my mind I'm seeing what, like the path by which they could go down and the possibilities. And I don't know, sometimes I feel like one of those paths is going to be what they do, and I just feel like I'm looking at them, like I'm looking through them. I don't know, it's really strange. But yeah, in some of these instances, Jonathan, it's like they just come to you, like, and
I'll just say that's an example of being through time rather than in time.
Yeah. As far as being wrong, sometimes I want to say that I really, when I was younger, and I still want to hold on to this. I kind of hope that there was a difference between intuitions that were right and intuitions that turned out to be wrong. Like the intuitions were wrong were just like mistakes, but the intuitions that were right were coming from a different place and were genuine. I don't know if that's true or not. I just hope it is true. That's just why I needed to say.
well, it's caused me to keep my mouth shut, because even though I have a really strong feeling about something, again, I'm not a prophet. I don't know.
I really wish I knew how to improve my intuition and make it more accurate. Like train it somehow, but I can't think of how to do that.
Well, I can give you a method, Jonathan. If you keep a record of it and then reflect on it,
Well, maybe.
you have subsequent insights.
I always feel like that might work, but it might not. Might be detrimental to it. Like trying to.
It's almost like trying to get scientific with this. Like, let's try and have instances.
It doesn't want to be scientific. It wants to be mysterious. It wants to be magical.
Yeah, I mean, because if you're drawing from previous experience, then you're going to take a new example and be like, let me redraw from my previous experience to try to come to predicting the future or what's going to happen, and you can't do that because it's random. Yeah. So how that's actually going to help this quote unquote mystical process be more accurate? I mean, it's going to be random. I mean, yes, okay, there's a probability that because these events ended this way, your event could end this way. But will it? We don't know.
But it may not develop intuition, but it might develop the reflection-based re-intuition.
Yeah, that's true. But actually being able to have a revelation and be like, this is what's going to happen for you. I feel it very strongly. It will happen. Like, I would never say that to someone because, well, you don't know. I don't know. But I do have instances where it's like, I don't know why. I feel this is going to happen. Watch out.
Right. And as you said, Hailey, before, that, like, you retain that anyway. You don't go on to another subject. If you have an intuition about hypertrophy, and reflect on it and then have another one, it's like it's not like you're going to forget it. It's like it's in the storehouse, you write it down, and it's all part of the journey in your studying of that.
I think it was in the E5 profile where there was a little snippet that was like, you want to just keep all the information that you've learned in your life and carry it around in your head. And I'm like, yep, that's exactly.
We might have enough time to get through these Dario things. So Jonathan, you're going at 8 o'clock, are you?
Yes.
Right. I want to hardly say anything as we go through these. So we covered all this aha bit.
Yeah.
So I'll go to.
I think I mixed up 1 and 3 there, but yeah.
Right. So, Hailey. So, what about this?
Yes.
Feel attracted to the symbolic, archetypal, or mysterious. Please give examples.
Okay, well, I just want to contrast this, though, to what we discussed. I think it was in the first video that was like random symbols just pop into your head. And it's like, no, they don't. But yeah, I do feel very interested in this. I don't know why. It's always there. Like a really common example I find that more people would know about now is like the symbolic stuff placed on money, placed on the dollar bills. Like you see pyramids everywhere and the phoenixes and stuff like that. I've always had an interest in knowing why that symbol, why did this company use that in their logo? Like people sat around a table and said, yes, I want to use this bird and this leaf. Like, why? Like, it's
There's
very interesting.
I think
to
there's
me.
some Masonic stuff on dollar bills.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I don't know if it has the eye in the triangle. I can't remember.
I don't know.
Right. Anything else with symbolic, archetypal, mysterious?
Well, no, I like, okay, when I go to the mall often and I'm seeing different brands, something maybe I've never seen before, I do find that very interesting, looking at the brand and being like, why did they choose that? What could that mean? Like, apart from the obvious, right? Like, oh, this brand does t-shirts and there's a t-shirt in the logo, like, obviously, but what about, oh, they have this in the logo too, like, randomly, what does that mean? Like, what could that symbolize? Like, yeah, stories with people Sebastian knows in higher circles that have malicious intentions, and kind of makes you privy to some things, and you wonder why they use certain symbols in their logos. And
so it's different kinds of meanings, maybe in terms of what is this signifying, and what does this portend? Maybe it's a warning of, and what is the motivation behind this? That sort of thing, the intention behind it.
I remember,
is it an omen? Is it an ominous symbol? That sort of thing. Looking for omens.
Yeah.
Right then.
Yeah, I remember watching a video on the fidget spinner things, and someone was discussing how it's like you've got two for like a stock thing, like we're enslaving these people and they're willingly and happily just giving their attention to this device, and just, it was very interesting. But stuff like that I find very interesting.
Oh, I just think it's like, oh, just give a toy to an SE dom to keep them busy. Jonathan, what do you think about that second one of part one?
Yes, and yeah, it's hard to give examples, but obviously I do study history, so I think I'll draw sort of. It was a studied philosophy as well, so like a more sort of ideas and ideologies. So I guess that may be part of what draws me in. I do think that I like it when symbols do have a deeper meaning behind them, or aren't just some random thing that someone just threw together to, have a symbol for the sake of having a symbol. I like it when it's all, there's an intricacy to it. Or even if they do it by random, it's like ends up having a meaning anyway. That can be okay. But yeah. Again, it always feels like trying to explain it as a betrayal of it. Like, it's not, it kind of robs from it. It doesn't do it justice. And that does not satisfy Ben at all, or his TI, but that's
maybe I'm trying to turn symbols into signs. Definitely the third one. I mean, we've mentioned that.
Yeah.
Before.
No.
But have both of you literally had premonitions where where it's like probably like hit you and you've seen it, maybe seen a result?
So yes, and one for me was just the other day. But the thing with this, again, it's when it hits you, sometimes it doesn't happen. I mean, sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't. So it's like, I can't say, oh, I have this premonition, because you don't know, is it really going to play out? And it's often just stupidness during the day. I feel like this is going to happen. And so it was giving my quote unquote prediction, because I felt that, like, I almost could mentally see it play out. And I told Sebastian, like, I feel like tomorrow the market is either going to go, it's going to hit an extreme up or down. And I don't know, I just felt that it would. and I almost could see into tomorrow. Like, I know that sounds stupid. It just sounds ridiculous when you tell people this. This is why I don't tell people this, because it sounds so stupid. But it's like I could see into tomorrow, and like just seeing the, I don't know. It's just I had such a strong feeling that it would. But sometimes I have such a strong feeling about something and it doesn't happen. So. And then I can keep going. I know we don't have a lot of time. We've got like 10 minutes, so.
Well, maybe I might press Jonathan for an extension, so that we get through.
Well, we can just continue this.
Because the previous videos were like in sections, and I'd like to finish this section, but also cover it deeply enough. So, Jonathan, have you had premonitions?
Yes.
Examples?
I can't think of any.
Flipping heck.
I know. It's so frustrating. I just can't off the top of my head. Sorry.
Right, okay.
Oh, go ahead.
That may be what makes it. There's part of me that feels that's what makes it stronger if I don't try and rationalize it. And I don't remember. And it's like, it's like
I
what
feel the same.
Yeah. It's like what I was saying earlier about dreams, how I don't know if I want to deal with dreaming or write a dream diary or anything like that, because I feel like my dreams are better when I don't know what's going to happen, when I can swim in them. And I feel the same intuition.
Okay. Dario had some odd names that I went through the book and I changed all of his headings that had something like basic use and introduction. There was like two words that had very similar meanings, and I objected to it, and I renamed all of them to basic, intermediate, because I wanted it like tiered properly. It was like, because he had basic and then introductory, and it's like they're pretty close to being synonyms of each other. Mm-hmm. So I was like, now we're on intermediate use. But I think aha realizations, you can have some really high quality aha realizations, and that's not necessarily level 1. That you can have very, very useful aha realizations. So I'm not so sure about putting that. Do you know what I mean? It's like the quality of the aha realization could make that advanced use.
I almost would argue it's quantity, because someone who's using NI to come to conclusions to, let me develop this change in this idea to get to this goal, to get to this whatever I'm developing in my mind, they're going to have more. Maybe they're stupid, maybe they're very profound, but nevertheless, they're engaging in it more. So would not someone who is a more of an NI dom or using NI more be experiencing these aha moments more and more? So
yeah,
it would be more of a quantity. And again, why it's in basic, I would say the more, go ahead.
What it might be, something popped into my mind, because you're looking metaphorically in a certain direction. It's almost like you're in the dark and you're looking in a certain direction, and NI is like provides the torch light of NI, shows you it, and you're looking. So in your case, you're studying in a certain direction. You're creating a space to have the insights within, and so you're creating a focus to have those intuitions within that frame of the thing that you're concentrating on. And look, so it's like the rabbit hole that you're going down. It's like that's the frame, and have intuitions within this field that you're focusing on. So it's like shining the torch in that certain direction, trying to find the truth with the torch of NI. There, I turned into Tamsi. Is something like that?
I mean,
you're searching hypertrophy land in the dark.
Yeah, I understand what you mean,
but
but I just don't see NI as something separate in me. It's not like I can think without it. Like it's like I can't
Okay,
go down the
okay, in that
rabbit hole
example-
without
in-
it.
Okay, in that example, you are the torch looking.
Yes, right.
Have you,
But I mean, oh, go ahead.
have you ever read a trilogy called His Dark Materials or heard of it? No, it's basically a kids' fantasy story. They made a film and they made a TV show about it now. But part of it is the main character has this device that can point her toward. It's kind of like a big compass and kind of point her towards whatever she needs to do or whatever she's looking for right now. And she uses it very intuitively. The author must be an INTJ or INTP or something because one of the morals of the story is learning to unlearn the intuition and learn to understand what all the different symbols in this device actually mean logic and use it logically rather than using it intuitively. And that's sort of treated as the growing up moment. That makes me angry even thinking about it. There's a lot of things in those. There's a lot of things in this trilogy that makes me angry actually, but that's something where I'm thinking of like that's an example of someone trying to impose reason and over intuition. And I don't know want to do that. I want the intuition to be the better guide, and I don't like the idea that it's more adult to use logic rather than intuition. It doesn't seem true, and it doesn't seem correct.
So what I'm thinking is that we could cover parts 2, the intermediate and advanced use, next week, and we can sort of cover it properly in depth rather than trying to squeeze it in the remaining 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Good.
But I think even though we digressed, we got some insights in there.
mm-hmm.
Right,
Yeah,
so
that
are
sounds
you
great.
happy to do it again next week, Hailey? No.
Next week, I don't know. Maybe the week after, I will get back with you and let you know.
Okay, I'll pencil it in for next a week on Saturday.
Okay.
Because I remember where we're up to do. The folks, this is stop being interested in we now. Just
part of me, I get lost, I forget. Okay. Well, thank you both very much, and we'll see you next time.